Batman the Caped Crusader Episode 3, Kiss of the Catwoman. Now, honestly, this is probably one of the best episodes that the Caped Crusader has to offer. Not so much to the same caliber as the animated series, but this show has at least 3 good episodes that if I was a WB executive and I needed to promote this as a DVD or a Blu-ray, these would be the 3 episodes that I would put on said DVD. The Catwoman episode, the Gentleman Ghost, and of course the Carnival episode, which all are very Bruce Wayne centered. And probably, you could argue episode 4 as well would make a pretty good DVD, if they still did that stuff. The other stuff would not sell. But The Kiss of Catwoman is a fantastic episode that focuses on Bruce Wayne with the subplot revolving around Selina Kyle, with a very different perspective on Selina than we've ever seen before, which is actually kind of funny. But I'll get into that a little bit later. So bear in mind, this video will contain spoilers for the entire episode of Kiss of the Catwoman, and we're going to dive into synopsis as well as my thoughts and all kinds of stuff. So let's get into it. So the episode begins at the Gotham Museum, where we meet a new character named O'Brien who works at the Gotham Gazette, and he's basically taking pictures of people. We then see Bruce and Selina hanging out, looking at Bruce Wayne's mother's pearls that are currently on display at the exhibit. Things are going kind of well, and Selina is very awestruck by Bruce, and Bruce just isn't really paying attention to her. Now, in the animated series, Bruce Wayne was heavily enamored by Selina Kyle, who was an animal activist, and just kind of stole his breath away. And now we have the reverse approach, where Selina is really into Bruce Wayne. Then things take a interesting twist, as Bruce Wayne has, we'll say, a little bit of anger issues, but I think this was totally justified. So we have some guy talking with another, probably reporter or somebody, and he begins to talk smack about Bruce Wayne's dead mom and parents, and, well, Bruce clocks him one, and, you know, it was actually kind of a cheering moment for me, because it's like, yeah, let's get that fool. So I enjoyed that. Because Bruce Wayne smacked around, said, I don't know, nobody, he's in big trouble with the law, which, honestly, this kind of stuff didn't really happen in the 40s. People got into fistfights all the time, so this is more like 2024 storytelling. Like, if you go and you hit somebody, obviously, even in the 90s, you're going to get in trouble with the law. The 40s, not so much, but, you know, modern times, yeah, totally. So because of that, Bruce Wayne has to go to therapy as a way of community service to get out of paying something or going to jail. Then we meet the other new character of this episode, Harley Quinn, who is a psychiatrist and literally Bruce's shrink. Now, she says that, you know, you have to do this kind of stuff, and we really need to dive deep into some of the anger. And Bruce is just like, well, I'm not really angry. I'm just your average so-and-so. And she's like, yeah, no, we need to dive deeper because you obviously have some resentment about your parents' death, and it's causing you to act out, and maybe deep down you have a lot of unbridled rage. And I'm just saying, yeah, he does. He doesn't really do well with the whole Bruce Wayne persona, which is his mask in the show. While she's talking to Bruce, he tends to space out quite a bit, and he remembers the night of his parents' murder. Also, we have some random police officer interviewing Bruce, which I really wish that this was Jim Gordon, and I'm going to tell you why. Later would have been a better connection for Bruce and Jim Gordon if it was actually Jim. Now, Jim was a beat cop around this time, and probably would have been around that area of Gotham anyway. So it would have made more sense to see, like, you know, Jim Gordon be that police officer, so it would further add to the story and the character's progression of how he ended up later becoming commissioner. But no, it's just some random nobody that you'll never see again, and it completely severs that emotional tie between Bruce and the police, because the police officer's just, you know, kind of like the facts, ma'am, you know? He's not really doing much, he's just trying to get to the heart of what happened, and it doesn't really feel like he cares about what happened to Bruce. At least that's the impression I got. Maybe you guys saw, you know, a different thing, but later Bruce's flashback is over, and he happens to be in the Bruce Mobile, or the limousine, and Alfred, I almost called him Pennyworth, I'm so sorry. The show is really making me think Pennyworth instead of Alfred, except, you know, later on in the show. But anyway, I don't want to be Damien. So Bruce is acting like Damien, spacing out, being cold to Alfred, all that other stuff. He thinks he's smart because he took some type of folder from the psychiatrist, and she has a note that says, see you next time. So after the whole limousine scene, we get to see what Selina Kyle is up to, and, well, I mean, she lives in the lap of luxury. Or does she? Turns out that her father was a famous gangster, which I'm assuming is Carmine Falcone. I don't know if it was established or not. I don't remember. But I'm going to say Carmine Falcone because it goes with the comics. So she's in this beautiful mansion, but there's a twist. Selina's completely broke. She has a maid from Russia, but they have no money. Yet the place is filled with cats, and pretty much all Selina does is burn her bills, which is not usually a good outlook, but, I mean, she's supposed to be a villain. She is this high society princess that has no nickels to rub together, which I think is actually a hilarious take on the character. This is something I would have loved to see incorporated in the Batman Brave and the Bold show, because it would have made Selina's character a little bit more, funny. And so I like what they did with Catwoman. It added a little bit of humor, and I believe Christina Ricci is the voice actress who's playing Catwoman. Based on seeing a picture of Batman in the newspaper, Selina has a brilliant idea to become a cat burglar, which her maid is kind of like, no, that's not a good idea. This is going to end badly. And she's like, oh, you worry too much. Fetch me my sewing stuff. And she makes a beautiful costume based on the 1940s Catwoman. It's a purple dress with a green cape, and, it looks pretty good. She even spotting the high heels, which I don't think the high heels would work very well for what she would be doing as a cat burglar. But anyway, she goes on a crime spree. The cat burglar strikes again in Gotham and hits all kinds of jewelry places, high society folks, you name it. Everything is going well until one night where the police manage to run into her. But of course, she gets away from the police. Bullock and Flash show up, and we have our first encounter with the Batman, and Catwoman is fascinated with him. But Batman, he ain't playing, so he throws one of his gadgets, ties up Selina, and that's the end of Catwoman. She's arrested by the police, and you think that's it. That's the end for her story, right? We then have another flashback with Alfred Pennyworth and Bruce Wayne in the limo, just going over, the death of his family once again, which this is going to be a driving focus of the episode. We then find out that this whole time that Bruce is having flashbacks, he's in therapy with Harley Quinn, who's really trying to dig deep beneath his surface, and even admits that you have some very high walls for me to get around. And Bruce is just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just your regular millionaire playboy, and, I am not upset about my family's death. I was when I was a child, but, all this other stuff now, it's just a distraction. I'm not a bad person. Same old, same old. And Harley Quinn is just kind of like, Now, in order to understand what's going on in episode 3 with the whole therapy thing, you have to watch episode 5, because it kind of later connects to that. In fact, it's the only interesting plot piece in episode 5 is this episode 3 connection. Then they move over to another scene where Catwoman is now standing in court and basically trying to appeal to the judge and saying she didn't know anything, she didn't know any better, or it wasn't her, or whatever. Whatever she could do to get out of going to jail is what she does. The judge gives her leniency and a warning, and she doesn't go to jail, even though Bullock and Flask literally had her dead to rights. Harvey Dent gets her off because she's a high society type, but then Harvey even admits, I don't even know why I did that, she doesn't have any money. So Selina is back in her limousine, and she's like, you know what? We need to up our game. And she's like, we need to go shopping, and basically she has the idea of, I need to have my own vehicle, because she was kind of like turned on by Batman's Batmobile. Back at the police station, both Bullock and Flask basically get grilled by other police officers, and they kind of razz them a little bit for literally they caught the cat burglar red-handed, and yet she still got off. So then Bullock and Flask come up with an idea to catch the Catwoman. Bruce is seen training in his house, watching TV, and then we have Summer Gleason or Vicky Vale or some reporter chick on the TV in black and white, discussing how Selina Kyle was not sent to jail and was released. And Alfred is like, well, that's kind of a pity. Maybe she'll take this warning to heart and not turn to crime again. And Batman just kind of scoffs and keeps, punching the punching bag. Not even a few days later, the cat burglar is at it again, stealing from the rich to give to herself. And she has another run-in with Batman where Catwoman and Batman are in a chase, and it's actually pretty well animated. The musical score is great. and I had no issues with this. And he and Catwoman get into a little tussle, and she falls off the roof, and of course he saves her, and she plants a big wet one on him. She gives him a kiss, as the 40s people used to say. And Batman is totally distracted because here's this beautiful woman who just kissed him out of nowhere, and he's like, what am I supposed to do? Now, this is what I like. This was a nice homage to the animated series. Catwoman attacks Batman, although she doesn't have claws, and she's not a martial artist like the Selina Kyle that we knew from the 90s. Instead, she uses some type of stun weaponry to take Batman out of the picture briefly, and then we're introduced to the Silver Age Catwoman mobile, which she uses to escape and then try to run over Batman. Flash and Bullock follow up on a lead and go to Selina's old hideout, and it's completely empty. There's nothing there. We then move forward somewhere else in Gotham into the slums, and Catwoman has created a really dumpy place to live for herself, which literally screams like it's something out of the 60s Adam West show, where the bad guys would have their hideouts. It's this really dumpy looking place, and even the maid is like, yeah, I'm so thrilled that we're here. By the way, you still haven't paid me. This is a running theme in the episode. The fact that the maid is very upset that Selina hasn't paid her since her father went to jail and basically all their assets were claimed. This will be important later on. Back in the Batcave, Batman is trying to figure out how in the world he's going to catch this cat burglar. Now, initially, when I saw this episode, I thought that he was going to try to catch her as Bruce Wayne, because Alfred gives him this idea about, like, that she's obsessed with this kind of stuff, and if only they could entrap her and, you know, appeal to her sensibilities. So I was thinking, okay, we're going to get to see Bruce and Selina go on a date, because obviously there is a little bit of chemistry between the two, but the chemistry in this series is more about Batman and Catwoman as opposed to Bruce and Selina, but Selina does like Bruce. So Bruce has this brilliant plan to use the museum in order to catch Catwoman. But then, of course, he ends up going to speak to the museum curator as Bruce Wayne, and he sets the trap. And now it's up to Catwoman to take the bait, which obviously does because, well, Selina's not too bright. She thinks that she can get away with everything because she's a woman, you know, girl power. We then have Bruce's last therapy session with Harley Quinn, and she's very disappointed in Bruce that he won't continue his therapy sessions. Now, it's not because she wants to actually help him get over his trauma. Harley Quinn is essentially the Mad Hatter of this universe, and I will leave you with that tease, but there's a reason why she helps rich people, and it's not what you're thinking. She is not a nice person. This is a very evil woman, even before she becomes the Harlequin. But more on that in episode 5. So Bruce gets a passing grade, and he's no longer has to be in therapy. Even though Alfred thinks therapy would be good for him, Bruce is like, nah, I ain't doing that. It ain't happening. I'm done. I did my community service. She signed out my papers. We have more pressing matters. We need to catch the Catwoman. So, even though Bruce says he's all fine and dandy, he has more flashbacks about the scene of his parents' murder, and we have some new additional details that have been omitted from other versions of Batman, which I really like what they did with Bruce Wayne being the main focus of this episode, as well as diving into the childhood trauma, which runs very, very deep inside of him. So, it got so bad that Bruce wouldn't even be able to sleep after his parents were dead because he would continue to have nightmares about them being basically, you know, gunned down. In fact, it got so bad that he actually had to go see Alfred, who was sleeping, and then we had this very chilling kind of like horror-like picture where Bruce is standing in the storm and Alfred's trying to sleep, and Bruce is like, everyone will pay, and kind of like, you know, those creepy children in the hallway, like a reference to that freaky horror movie. That's kind of what they're doing, and Alfred's just like, oh dear, I don't really know what's going on, but yeah. So remember that O'Brien character that we met at the very beginning of the episode? Yeah, Batman has this brilliant idea to go meet up with this guy and have him take pictures, and he does that by interrogating the poor man, who's really not doing anything wrong. He's just trying to earn a living in Gotham, and he's taking pictures of cheating spouses in order to, you know, run exposés, or who knows, maybe the wife put him up to it. Doesn't matter. The guy's trying to earn an honest living, more or less. And Batman's just like, I need you to do this for me. And the guy's like, I'll do whatever you want. Just don't drop me, man. So Batman takes O'Brien to the museum where they have laid the cat trap. Catwoman shows up on cue to try to steal Bruce Wayne's mom's pearls. And, well, Batman literally catches her in the act and has photos taken. But Catwoman, well, randomly, for some reason, because maybe it's Silver Age Catwoman, who knows, she has a panther with her, or a jaguar. I don't really know cats. I'm not a zoologist or anything. So she has this big cat with her who attacks Batman, and just like the animated series, Batman deals with this cat creature the same way he always does. He finds some way of putting it to sleep, and that's exactly what happens. Now we have a different take on the episode, because Batman isn't the only one who had the idea to catch Catwoman at the museum where these jewels have been on display, and now they're, going to be taken off the market. So best way to do it and steal it would be now. Both Bullock and his partner had the same idea, but they have more, vengeful thoughts about how to deal with Catwoman. So Flash is about ready to kill Catwoman, and Batman saves her at the nick of time. And Catwoman's like, wow, you really do care. Batman patches up her wound, but then leaves her tied up for the police. So Batman is always going to be Batman. And I appreciate the nod to more of the Bronze Age Batman comics. This is more in lines of like Neil Adams, Dennis O'Neil, that kind of stuff. Like literally leaving her tied up for the police after having like a romantic moment. That is a totes modern Batman thing. O'Brien is like, well, I helped you out, but I also got footage of you beating up the police, so what do you want me to do with the other stuff? I'll totally run the Catwoman story, but what do you want me to do with these pictures? I can erase them. And Batman's like, you know what? I don't care. He says, you should run this, and people should fear that I'm coming for them if they do something bad. And O'Brien's just kind of like, okay. So Catwoman is making her one phone call, and you're like, who in the world is she talking to? Is she talking to Harvey Dent? It's like, no, she's speaking to Gretchen the maid, and the maid has literally pulled a big one over Catwoman. While Catwoman was doing her stuff behind her back, the maid went and sold everything, and she's finally going on vacation and still demands, when Selina gets out of jail, to pay her back. Now, I think Selina's going to have a big role to play in Season 2, but the episode ends with her in jail, which was actually kind of funny. And then we have a nice little moment with Batman back in the Batcave, sipping tea, and Alfred and him are talking about, how well they did on this case, but, where do they go from here? And, how is Batman going to continue his war on crime? And this is what I really like. They end the episode with something different that we don't really get to see a peek in Batman's origin, but Alfred is actually at the limo cleaning it while the Waynes are being gunned down, and he is the first one to rush to the scene to be with Bruce, and we don't actually know what happens to the mugger. But, instead of the police being with Bruce the whole time, Alfred was actually there to, keep Bruce from being by himself, which usually the incident happens and Alfred's not there. So to see Alfred be able to run to comfort Bruce, that was actually a very human element for Alfred, and I really do like this version of Alfred, and I would like to see more of that. But yeah, that's essentially the episode, The Kiss of the Catwoman. Again, a different take on Catwoman, but I think they handled it more respectfully than they did with some of the other characters. This is by far my favorite episode, and my score is pretty easy. I give this episode a 9 out of 10. Like, I think that the writing is fantastic. It has great pacing. It doesn't miss a story beat. All the characters that are interacting with Batman matter as a general focus of the episode. Again, if I was an executive and I was putting together a DVD, say the show released like around 2008, this is one of the 4 episodes I would have included on that 4-episode DVD, because this would sell the show. Again, this is a great episode. I highly recommend it. If you have to watch one episode of the Caped Crusader, this is probably one of the best ones. Guaranteed. So yeah, but anyway, now I want to hear from you guys and gals. How do you feel about Batman the Caped Crusader Episode 3, The Kiss of Catwoman? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Or did you think it was one of the weaker episodes of Season 1? Let me know in the comments section below. Now, my favorite take of Catwoman is always going to be the animated series. That was peak, because the characterization was a combination of both Silver Age Catwoman, Bronze Age Catwoman, and it just melded together perfectly. The actress who played her had that very saucy kind of femme fatale voice, and the chemistry between both Bruce and Selina when in and out of costume was amazing. The reason why they did this is Catwoman had to be a major focus of Season 1 and 2 because of the fact that she appeared in the second Batman movie, Batman Returns. They really wanted to use Catwoman a lot, but it didn't feel forced. When Catwoman showed up in the original series, it actually worked really well, and it furthered Batman's story as well as showed her connection to the Gotham Rogues, and also her place inside of Batman's heart. He had a soft spot for her in his heart, which, she would take advantage of by scratching him or leaving him for the police, except for in the Almost Got Him episode, which, she leaned in to kiss him, and then, of course, he got away. before she could seal the deal. But I like this version of Catwoman. I want to see more of her. I think that out of all the characters, she is oozing 1940s charm, femininity, and she's just a really great character. My major complaints for the episode, there were a couple times where Catwoman all of a sudden became a kung fu expert, and I was just kind of like, okay, that's weird. Also, the fact that she's running around in those type of 40s heels would be very difficult for her, especially when she's seen scaling buildings and doing some other stuff. Like, I'm imagining that she would slip and all kinds of stuff. Now, Catwoman, in later incarnations and older series, it explained why she had the type of boots she did, as well as the type of traction that she was able to do in order to run around and outmaneuver Batman and stuff like that. This was literally a rich heiress who saw a guy in a Halloween costume and decided she's going to become a costumed crime doer or whatever as well. And all of a sudden, now magically, she can do all the stuff that Batman literally had to go and train for. So that was kind of like a laughing groan from me. I was just kind of like, you know what? Don't fixate on this too much. But it did bother me, especially when you see her scaling the building with the high heels on. I wanted to see one scene where she would actually slip running, because then it would be like, okay, yeah, that would totally make sense, and would probably be why she would go to a more like boot-oriented thing in the future. But, you know, that's just a minor nitpick. Although we don't know, because if she was a rich daddy's girl, if she had gymnastics training or anything like that. But it feels like they were kind of borrowing from the Catwoman, like from the Julie Newmar from the 60s a little bit. Like a Catwoman who's just kind of like in it for the thrill of it. She's like a thrill seeker character, and you know, I want more characters like that in Season 2. It added a whole different element to what Batman deals with in terms of the criminals that he faces in Season 1. But anyway, that's it. That's all. Thank you guys so much for listening to The Kiss of the Catwoman. I hope you guys enjoyed it. But anyway, I'll see you guys for Episode 4, which is pretty decent, and it deals with a task force going against Batman, which had its ups and downs for an episode, but I think overall was pretty good. But, yeah, let me know what you thought about this. I'll see you guys in a few days with the next review, because it does take a while to put this together. And I do plan on covering all 10 episodes, so we still have more to go. And some will be good, some will not be so good. So just bear in mind. All right, keep it locked here for more news and reviews on anything Batman in TV, movie, video games, and occasionally comics when they don't suck. Later, Gothamites.